What's up, everybody? Give me a few seconds trying to make sure everything is all right and everything is everything. I'm guessing I can hear it because I can hear the airplane. I'm guessing I can hear it because I can hear the airplane. Alrighty, this is actually wonderful. What's up, everybody? And welcome to today's episode, The Architect of the Legal Matrix, How to Become the Glitch That Beats the System. Now, a lot of people are going to question why I chose this topic. You're not crazy, but you're programmed. The legal system is a matrix. You're not the architect, but you can become the glitch that keeps crashing their code. Most people feel lost in court, and most of the people I train are to be pro se defendants. And even lawyers who sense the game is rigged, but can't quite see the architecture. Now, the context of this is the architect, the matrix, and your role as the anomaly. I'm going to explain how the legal language is designed to confuse. It's designed to bring chaos. And for the most part, today, we're going to decode it and weaponize it on behalf of you. Because what most people don't understand is the context that the legal language itself is coded exactly how it's supposed to be. Because most people meet the legal system with the same way they meet a nightmare. Confused, overwhelmed, suffocating under words they don't understand. They walk into a courtroom and suddenly you're drowning in dense dialogue, laced in cryptic terms, Latin phrases, and rules no one ever taught you. Because they'll tell you things like, Latin is a dead language, you shouldn't learn it, yet it is littered all through legal literature. And you walk out thinking you had said, or thinking you had your say, but you still have no idea what just happened. You try to protect yourself, but somewhere between the judge's orders, the lawyer's jargon, and the clerk's attitude, you've lost again. And then sometimes you win. Maybe a ticket gets dismissed, a charge gets dropped. Maybe you even beat an eviction once. Hell, I've actually known people to meet them 2 or 3 times. But here's the thing. At that moment, you think, I did it. I cracked the code. I'm chosen. I'm built for this. But you're not winning a war. You're surviving a skirmish inside a system you don't understand. Because what you see isn't the architecture. I did not realize so many planes went over here. Well, that might actually contribute to me living literally right down the street from the airport. But anyway, you don't see the design of the system that was built long before you. You don't see the programmers who wrote the rules you're now forced to obey. You don't see how your emotions, your fears, and even your hope have been mapped, measured, and monetized. Because this system itself is designed for monetary gain because our courtrooms are corporations that are registered. Now, I'm not the architect of the matrix. I didn't build the courts, the statutes, or the bureaucracies that cage people's lives. But I do understand the creation, the programming, and the system you've been subjugated to. My life is a sum of a remainder of an unbalanced equation to that programming. I am the eventuality of an anomaly the government has tried and failed to eliminate from what it believes is a harmony of mathematical precision. And yes, that is a direct quote from the Matrix. But most people have 99% accept the programming. Why? Because they believe they were given an opportunity or even a choice in the matter. Take the plea or risk prison. Sign the deal or lose your home. Comply or lose your kids. These are not choices. So when you are going through this, don't believe they are. They're selecting from options the system pre-approved. I realized early that the idea of choice was itself embedded in the programming. I'm going to say that one more time because most people are going to miss that. Because when we're talking about the acceptance, because even if you read the comments, it's littered with acceptance. Because 99% accept the programming because they believe they were given a choice. Take the plea or risk prison. Sign the deal or lose your home. Comply or lose your kids. These aren't choosing. These are not choices. But it's still accepted programming because it is already pre-approved by the system that you are diametrically opposed to. The options are the bars of the cage. The feeling of freedom is part of the script. I don't fight the system the way they taught you to fight it. I don't march, I don't chant, I don't beg for reform from the same machine that profits from your suffering. Most people fight for fear of loss. I fight because I fight because I carry the same cold anger and calculated wrath that the system uses against you. I'm not trying to be your activist. I'm not trying to be your hero. I choose only what's best for me and the ones I love. That means I can do something most people can't. Detach emotionally enough to see the game is actually being played. I'm strategic. I'm calculating. My moves are intentional. I'm not a friend of the system. I am not bound by its unwritten social rules or its emotional blackmail. I don't operate on hope or luck. I don't conform to the program. I use the program against itself. The government has created a system where people stay asleep, though totally, excuse me, let me get a little sippy sip. Got a little ginger tea this morning. Anyway, the government has created a system where people stay asleep through total dependency. We had an opportunity to see that when the SNAP benefits were threatened. We saw how people chose anarchy over self-reliance because they are totally dependent and was willing to go into a chaotic state when they were not allowed to rely on that system versus relying on themselves to do what was necessary to feed themselves. They chose anarchy. They chose criminal acts. And this is part of that accepted dependency, which is part of the systematic control that is being placed upon you. Now, understanding this, your job, your benefits, your credit, your freedom, they're all run through the same code. And that code, I am the glitch that keeps appearing. In this episode, I'm not going to sell you a fantasy about fighting the power with slogans or hashtags. I'm not going to tell you that one court win makes you a champion of justice. I'm not going to do what I'm not going to do is walk you through the architecture. I am going to talk about the flaws in the matrix the system cannot fully control, such as human emotion, irrational thoughts, erratic behavior, the actions of individuals when pressure is applied, denial, and the weapon they love to use against you the most, hope. And by the time I'm done, you're going to see why most of the people you call heroes, activists, and legal teachers are just pawns playing their assigned role in the advanced chess game. And you're going to see the path to becoming something else. Not the architect, not the pawn. I am the glitch. Welcome to the architect of the legal matrix. Let's break the program. All right, so, yes, I took a lot of damn notes. Okay. Maybe I should have put this in better order. The importance of understanding that the legal language is intentionally dense, basically the statutes, the rules, and the cryptic terms. They are designed so you cannot pinpoint, which is why statutes, codes, and ordinances change from city to city versus law. Law does not change from state to state. All 50 states have the same law. The enforcement ideals are done only through different avenues because they are designing it as a means of frustration to create the anxiety, because even the interrogation, the Supreme Court has determined the interrogation is designed to be coercive. The uniform is designed to be coercive. When you're looking at the vehicle, the cruiser is designed to cause anxiety. The guns that are pulled out, they're designed to create a response from your body, a biological response, meaning it's one that you can't even help. Why? Because the programming has been ingrained in what it is that you know or believe you know. And that is strictly by design. When I use the word design, it's not because it's not prevalent in our legal system, because our legal system is designed through business mechanisms to create and generate revenue, which is why when I spoke about the, asset forfeiture, I actually showed you that it was illegal. I showed you several cities here, even in Texas, that are run by asset forfeiture, by illegal asset forfeiture. I actually told you when it would be optional for either the police or even the government to take something from you. Even the Constitution has it embedded in it, which was written in the 1700s, of what the government is allowed to do with your property and how they are required to handle it. But again, our programming allows us to accept it because of the choices that we're given. That's where the cryptic terms come in, because they're telling you you have options while in fact not allowing you to actually exercise them. Because most people actually get lost trying to decode what just happened after court. Most people get lost in the code when they're trying to figure out how to get their story heard, because they think, okay, I took pictures, that's evidence. No, not in all cases. Because the greatest part of the programming is most Americans, and I'm going to say it this way, we are programmed and designed. If someone says something to you or accuses you of something, we are programmed to rebut it, to now prove ourselves against them, when in fact, that's not how law works. And it's amazing how many people actually will challenge me whenever I say things like that. But they won't go and actually look at the court cases. They won't actually listen to the directives from the judges that they feared the most. When I actually give context to it, then they become upset with me because they think, oh, well, you believe you're a know-it-all. No, but I know that. I don't know everything, but I know that. So when I refer to myself as the anomaly, as the glitch in the system, whenever I go out to teach you, it's to reshape your thinking. Always understand that your choice is now actually being able to see the actualities of that choice. Because there's a reasoning behind why they do things. Why are they intimidating you instead of actually looking for evidence to convict you? Because they want you to convict yourself. They want to fight you until you stop fighting. They want you to give in. These are the things that I'm talking about when I see this, because they don't want you exercising certain aspects of law when things are going in. And when you do get a win, you must think about, is this a process that can be done in every instance? And then two, is this the process that is properly followed? And the one thing that sets me apart from everyone else is because I understand the process better than anyone else. These are the things that most people miss because they think there's a shortcut. This is not a microwave. The legal system is built on home cooking. You got to crank up the stove. You got to get your pots and pans out. You have to sometimes boil those potatoes before you mash them up. This is what the legal system itself is. And yes, I'm a fat boy. I'm going to talk about food. And even when the context of offering you something such as hope, or you see someone as an activist, when they get weaponized, they keep people inside the system. I'm going to say that again. When you're looking at people in a sense of activism, when you're looking at people for a sense of hope, many of these people are there to keep you boxed into the system. Why? Because they don't actually understand how the process works. Because you got to remember, there are people that you're going up against that went to school after they graduated for an additional 7 years, not to become an attorney, but to take a test, which 80% don't pass on the first time. They go to school for 7 years to take a test, which most of them don't pass, to be half-assed at their job. Let that sink in. And you think you're going to read 1 or 2 books and watch 3 or 4 YouTube videos, and now you're all of a sudden, you're the next Johnny Cochran. Because you haven't even figured out what the entirety of the matrix is. You don't understand how the inner workings behave. Because I even give the example of chess. I can give you all the chess pieces. And matter of fact, we can go across the world. Chess is chess all across the world, same exact pieces. Very few people actually understand how to play it. And those that understand how to play it, very few of those are high level. They don't understand gambits. They don't understand sacrifice. They don't understand positioning. These are the things that are weaponized against them. Because even with all the pieces, if you don't know how they move in the most effective way, you have no benefit from them. And that is how this system works. Because the concept is controlled opposition. Because when you're even dealing with these attorneys, because when we're talking about the activists and the influencers and the legal coaches who are really part of that machine, It's because majority of them have no idea that there's a box the attorneys can't walk outside of. And if they do, there's also a level of measure to hold them accountable, which is why they use, well, you don't want to upset the prosecutor. We don't want to disturb the DA with this motion. If you challenge it, they're going to do this. Because they have boxes. And what you didn't know is when they do that, when they do not defend you vigorously, that's that outside box in which you can hold them accountable. And most of these activists, influencers, and legal coaches have no real understanding on how to do that. The glitch does. Always understand that. Because even whenever I was talking about how people were talking about lawsuits, oh, we're going to sue, go. This is what you do next. You'll see most of my posts say, go take their post certifications. Most people have no idea what post is. Police officer standards and training certification, which allows them to be police officers. Go take that. Go after that. Sue them to get their pension, but don't forget that post certification. Allow them to understand that you are the one that's in control. You are the puppet master. You are the one moving the pieces, not them. Because when that happens, it becomes a different game. Because even when we talk about the architecture versus the anomaly, understand you're not the architect. I'm not the architect. You didn't build the system, nor did I. I understand how to move throughout the system. Because again, I always love to bring up the Matrix. Because Neo, most people forget, not only did he understand how to move inside the Matrix, because remember, he also understood the language of the Matrix, but he understood how to move outside the Matrix. Why? Because he was already there. So when he was in the Matrix, when I say he understood the language, because remember, the Matrix is computer code. He wasn't speaking English. He was speaking through the computer's code. So when you're going into court, you can't use this outside language because you're talking a completely different code inside a courtroom. There's a different system inside a courtroom. I understand the programmacy. I understand the dependencies. I understand that this is a psychological game. This has very little to do with actual law. This is why there's a separation. So whenever I spoke about my life is the sum of a remainder of an unbalanced equation, because I talk about the code inside this system. Because I can see that code. I can see that code at many levels. Why? Because again, it's codified at the state level. It's codified that has to be matching at the federal level. And it's also codified beyond. Because again, it's not always about what you say. It's definitely how it's being said. Because I'll use the word oftentimes as the proper filing, the proper challenge. Because many people say, oh, I challenged subject matter jurisdiction. And in fact, they didn't do it correctly. Oh, well, I put Latin in my motion, but you didn't put it where it was most effective. And most people, that's where the glitch comes in. This is where most people are falling at. Because even the eventuality of an anomaly, the system is designed for opposition, right? Because it's an adversarial system. That is literally the design for a challenge. This is a fight. This is where most people get lost at. They think they're going to file paperwork and not have to show up. No, you sign that contract. You have just like any other fight. You have a location. You have a time. And you have an opponent. That's it. You've accepted the adversarial part of the fight. Go fight. Because even we looked at the totality in which would actually change our system. The greatest thing was I cracked up because I was like, we're about 5% right now, people challenging. 5. That's good. It actually has dropped over the last 2 years. But when I thought about it, I was like, well, we need to double it. We need to get to 10%, and that'll shut the system down. What I was appeased to find out, because a actually Supreme Court justice sat down and he spoke about it. And what he stated was the tipping point for our justice system isn't 10%. It's 7.5. If we ever got to 7%, our complete justice system comes to a halt. And that blew my mind. We're at such an assembly line of acceptance because of the choices. And most people operating through fear and programming that they don't understand that challenge brings change. Because when you even talk about what Neo did, the greatest design flaw was he did not perform through their rationalities. Because I often speak about what morals are we following? Whose morals are we following? Because if you look at most people's morals, they fluctuate. Because the greatest question that was asked, and I actually did a podcast on this, it's I actually can't remember the name of it, but it was something to the effect of the morality of murder. And the reason why that was the moral compass that was actually brought out was because it was, who are we okay with killing if? And what happens is the people or person that was, when asked who was okay to be murdered, it changed from person to person to the murdered to the murdering. Because most morality in this day and time is subjective. And that's the problem, because we're not using the correct words. And most people are in a microwave point in their life in which they're wanting to do something, but they're operating based on half information and fear. And this is where the separation was. When Neo no longer had fear of dying. When he no longer had fear of the system. Because remember, if you look at Matrix 3, he saw an opportunity. He went to the place of the people that wanted to kill him. He said, hey, if you want to do this, I can do it. I can break it. But you have to be willing to not have fear. When you lose the fear and you're able to walk into that courtroom, you're able to look these police officers in the face, when you're able to write down and then speak, your power becomes exponential. Because you then become the actual glitch that they fear. Because the difference between the 99 who accept the program and those of the 1% who see it, the operation is different when there's an absence of fear. And even when that happens, most people fight from the fear of loss. But I fight with alignment with the system. I fight with the alignment of the system's own wrath, because I speak about the only way to beat a monster is to become a monster. And I'm okay with the monster that I am. I spoke about this, I want to say a couple years ago, because it comes from Wonder Woman. Again, I use practical references that you can actually go and look at right now. At the end of the original Wonder Woman, she's fighting the god, right? And he knocks the weapon out of her hand and she starts to panic. And she, while in the midst of her panic, the god asks her, it's like, why are you so flustered? She goes, because I've lost the god killer. He laughed at her. He said, you are the god killer. You've always been the god killer. Most people don't have that monster in them. And those that do aren't easy to deal with. Most that do are very seldom understood because we're looking at something that you're trained to be afraid of. And those that walk that 1%, we're seeking to not only flesh out that monster, we think we're bigger monsters. Because we're to the point where most don't want to see us. And that's where this comes in at. Because the design in this, because I even speak to people when they talk about, oh, well, you have to get a license. No, you don't. Because before 1911, what license was issued to get married? They tell you you have to have these things in order to track you, because the first license was written or required for tracking the amount of interracial relationships, interracial marriages. That's what the tracking device is. Because even in the courts, your benefits, your licenses, your jobs, your credit, your housing, these are all control levers. Because being dependent equals predictable or predictability during litigation, because they understand your habits, your practices. They also understand your weaknesses. Because most people, no matter what they make per day, per month, per hour, they're living paycheck to paycheck. So they understand the slightest disruption can create anxiety. Because again, remember, we're not dealing with just this, but we're understanding the function, because it's designed to create this in your life. The psychological game that's being played is designed to go in and cause a body or chemical reaction, which is predictable through the code that was written for this. Because even when you're talking about how they're rushing plea deals that don't make sense, they're forcing hearings they don't want or don't want you at, and they're demanding records that they bury, right? Because even with me as the glitch that keeps appearing in the code, it looks like I am forcing them into positions that they aren't used to, because most are not understanding challenges, because they don't understand that you need an entry of appearance whenever you're going in, because they have to file one. Mine looks different. Mine has more force because it understands this. The next part of that is, now when we go in, there's a rule for, let's say I want to get this over in 90 days. We do the speedy trial. I force them within that. They don't want to turn over Giglio information. Great, because I actually got another case that I can drop to not only get Giglio information, but to also get IA information. Let's say they got a informant that was a witness, but they don't want to give the name because it was an informant. I have case law to get that. Why? Because I force them to do a job and I'm not on their team. Because all of this is a design, the anomaly inside their perfect system. Because I'm not their buddies. I don't have a bar card. I'm not part of the court system. And it's one of those where most people actually look at, I'm the flaw in the matrix. Because the flaw that they look at, or the glitch, is the flaw that I exploit. Is because judges, prosecutors, and cops, while being emotional beings and pretending to be neutral, all of them have limitations. Why? Because of that box I spoke about. Now, when they're not outside that box, is how to hold them accountable for their actions. Because when I'm playing in that box, I push them to see if they'll go outside. And when they go outside, I then hold them accountable for the words, even of a messenger. All my strategies are to stay emotionless. Because outwardly, the logic slides through like a knife. You do this, and if you don't, there's a consequence. And most people, again, don't know these consequences because they don't understand procedures. Because even whenever I did the series about the jurors, I even spoke about a point of being first to speak, to run a story, because that's where the details come in. A lot of people try to put it in. Let me throw in an affidavit and I'm gonna put this in to put the case. For what? They don't care. But you know what they are required to do? Give you information. They're required to turn over evidence because they're the ones who's cherry picking your case. They're the ones who make having the police discretion, the prosecutorial discretion, judicial discretion. That's why you challenge everything. I don't have to prove anything to you at all. And even the affidavit is a show of weakness. It's a show of fear. Because it's also a show that the programming is working. Because it's like playing cards and turning your cards towards the person that you're playing against. Because you're telling them your strategy. You're telling them how you're going to approach it. You're giving them everything they need to beat you. And it's also evidence that the programming is working because you're offering an explanation just because you've been accused while not requiring them to do their job. Not requiring them to stand on their choice. Not requiring them to stand on business. These are the things that I'm talking about. Because when we're talking about framing a narrative, even then I spoke about framing it towards their irregularities. Because that's exactly what I did during the RICO trial. I didn't explain why I was teaching people. I didn't explain why. I don't care why they brought all those up. But what I did care about was the mistakes that they made. Them being overeager, but them not following procedure. Them not having complete reports. Them not telling the truth. Because one lie can destroy 100 truths. And I exploited that. I didn't say they were bad. I just pointed out that they were bad at what they did. I gave them someone to be angry with. That wasn't me. And this was part of the narration. This was part of the programming. And this is why most people don't get it. This is why I'm the glitch. This is why I talk about many of these activists. They've never won anything that's real. Nothing that's substantial. And a lot of these coaches are doing it because they believe that AI is going to save them. And this is not how the system works. Because even every tool they give you, they're going to find something to combat it. But you know what they're not combating? Books. The hard copy books. They're not beating those. Why? Because they know you're not going to open them. They're going to give you every opportunity to not open a book. And in most cases, you're not. And even in this, Officers, witnesses, and opposing counsel crack when you apply procedural pressure. Pressure busts pipes and makes heroes. And one of my favorites is Mike Tyson. Everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. And once you get hit in the mouth, we see who you are. That's why it's psychological. It has very little to do with law. And most people miss that. This is why I understand that, because, again, I see the matrix. I watch how everyone moves because I damn what they talking about. Because, again, I always tell people, don't listen to what the judge says. Don't listen to shit he's saying, but pay attention to how they are moving. Right? Great example. I had a judge yell out, "We don't do omnibus motions around here, and don't you ever file one. I'm denying this motion." Bang. Bangs his gavel. Thank you, my honor. I look forward to getting a signed copy of your disposition from today's hearing. I sat out in the hallway. Judge comes back, hands me a copy. He granted everything that was in the omnibus motion, but in court, he said he's denying the omnibus motion. But he granted it on paper in writing. Because in court, he has to put on a show. He has to show he's in charge. He has to fool the others that are stuck in the programming. I saw through that. And in private, he can give me everything I asked for because I move like they do. Isn't that what they kept saying about Neo? Say, oh, whoa. He's moving like the agents. This is why. Because I'm able to see them. I'm moving beyond the code. And this is why I'm able to not only guide you through, is I'm able to not pay attention to that foolishness. Because even if he did not grant the omnibus motion, that judge is still liable, and I could still hold him liable. Why? Because there are several other things I can do afterwards. Because even I actually watched the dude the other day. He said, well, if a judge don't do this, you write a writ of mandamus. Possibly too early. And most people don't understand, again, the steps in getting there. Because one of the things my brother used to say to me, again, I spoke about this previous, is line upon line, precept upon precept. Everything you do has a process to it. Work the process. Philadelphia years ago had the theme, trust the process. And the one thing that I understand about our system is expectation management, because, again, how deep the programming is. And very few people understand the process. And that's why the glitch exists. Because when you understand the process and procedures, you understand how the matrix moves. When you can see beyond emotion. Because I actually told a young lady a couple of days ago, I said, you know what? You almost have to be a sociopath to do this properly. You can't care about the feelings of anyone. You can't care about what's going to happen, could, possibly, might. I don't delve in hope. I understand that there's going to be things that are said because this is a psychological game. There are going to be things that they're going to attempt to do. I actually was helping my niece at one point. I spoke about this as well. They went to her job. 2 police officers went to her job on video. They didn't even know we had the video. And put a gun to her head and told them, I better not represent her. That only made me more excited because that let me know they were so scared of me, they would rather go after her. The glitch in the matrix. Because the things I say, I mean them. When I spoke about having my brothers tie me down and waterboard me, because, again, I'm willing to go through pain to win. I have become a monster, and I'm cool with it. Because this, if understanding the real part of this, when you're attacking this monster, it'll eat at your health. It'll eat at your mental well-being. It'll do things to you if you're not prepared for that could physically destroy you. And that's by design. So when you have someone that's able to help you or guide you, and they give you information no matter how it works. Again, I give another example. I had a young lady. She was a little distraught. Yeah, let's use that, distraught. And she said, well, the judge denied this, the judge denied that. And I just laughed. I said, remember I told you a couple weeks ago, I'm laying a trap because I just need to catch up. She said, okay. But the judge, I said, no, understand this. The judge isn't following law. He's allowing this and that and the. I said, so now, for the lawsuit that we're getting ready to now encompass with this, the judge is a co-conspirator because he's going outside of his judicial duties. And when a judge becomes a co-conspirator in an illegal act, which is suborning perjury, he then becomes just as liable as the other people that you're in your adversarial venture against. And I told her, I said, you do not interrupt your enemies when they're doing harm to themselves, for lack of a better word. But understand this. The biggest part is I push the judges, the officers, witnesses, other counsel into positions where they are forced to commit on record. I lock them into contradictions. Why? Because you can't argue with yourself. Because again, the most predictable human resource is denial. But the fact is, if it's in writing, if it's on video, you can't contradict that. Because even the use of discovery, understanding how to weaponize subpoenas, and even cross-examination to make denial destruction is a part of destroying their credibility. Because then it has a domino effect. Because if you destroy a cop's credibility on the stand, everything they've done previous now comes into question. And again, now you could throw in the going after the post certifications. Because again, it has a domino effect. And it has that effect because you've weaponized their credibility. You've weaponized their writings. You weaponize what they're putting their signatures on. And this is the resource that I offer to you. Because hope is the quintessential source of human delusion. The hoping the system is fair is futile. Hell, it's also fatal. Because I've watched good people, innocent people, be completely ignored or even thrown in prison for things they did not do. While we're programmed to believe if you're in an orange jumpsuit and the police grab you and put you in jail, you've done something. No. Because just like I spoke about these people going to school for 7 years to take a test that they're failing. What do you think these people that are going to training for 6 weeks, 9 weeks are learning? Can't be law, because the people that are practicing law are going to school for 7 years. They're going for 6 weeks, 9 weeks. Literally, month, 2 months. They're literally going a fraction of a time, but you're telling me they're right because we're programmed to believe they're right. Hell, even Jordan v. City of New England told us that not only do they make those mistakes, that they're not the most intelligent. They're not going to hire very intelligent people. Why? Because those with intellect ask questions. That's why all the cops that follow me, and I use the term trained attack dogs, none of them, not one, has ever corrected me. And that's my beats pill. Not one has ever corrected me. Why? Because they understand the programming. That's why they spend more money on bad officers than they do on officer health. Because they care about how the system is working. And yes, I use the word or term working. And I want you to understand something. I don't care how you feel about it with me calling out fake activists and fake legal gurus. It is what it is. Because a lot of these people, even as early as last week, have been on the phone with me to help them fix the messes that they've made with other folks' cases. Because they don't understand the matrix. They're relying on something else. They're relying on a program. And even the greatest response I had from a dude yesterday was, the program is only as good as its programmer. And basically, when you're inputting this information into the chat GPTs, the legal assistant AIs, you also have to know how the matrix works, how this system functions. And the majority of people don't. You've won one case and you think, oh, I got it now. I've been doing this since 2008, and it's constantly evolving. Which is why when I put up the case about the totality of circumstances now has to be considered, not only for police, but in lawsuits against police. They can't pick and choose what parts. They have to give us everything. Why? Because that's law. Law has evolved into that. And then when you get to the point to where these people that you're following, I called it a money grab because that's what they're chasing. They're chasing likes on TikTok. Because I actually watched the AI, this one thing on TikTok, and it was funny because they attempted to friend me, sent me a message. It was the dumbest shit I'd ever seen in my life. But they're using AI because they're getting views and they're becoming TikTok famous. And I'm watching these AI videos that they're putting up, and I'm like, oh my God, because those videos are wrong. All the videos. I'm not going to say one, all of them are wrong. Every video I watched from that channel is wrong. Why? Because the AI isn't designed to create or even be combative to the legal system, because that's not part of the programming. And the program is only as good as the programmer. That means the person that's putting in the information doesn't know what it is that they're supposed to be asking or prompting this AI to say or do. That is the problem. And what that does is keep you as part of the program itself. They're keeping you ingrained in the script. I'm the narrator of this. I'm going to tell you uncomfortable truths, because there are a lot of people teaching a system they don't understand. They're going through procedures they could never execute themselves. Why? Because they don't know them. Now, am I saying everybody doesn't? No, I'm not saying that. There is a good bit of people that are on here and on TikTok that have no clue. The people that know what they're doing are in the minority, not the majority. The majority don't have any clue of how this works. And I always tell people, whenever they want to question some of the stuff that I've done or said, come here. I've been talking about this shit since 2017 on here. These aren't new conversations that I'm having. The way they look are very new. Because again, my background, I'm outside. I'm at my own house. I'm outside on the porch. And this is one of the things that I'm talking about. It's becoming a issue because people are looking at this and saying, oh, I have ChatGPT, or I have Perplexity, I have XYZ AI. I can actually help people and charge them money. And that's the problem, because people are so desperate for people that'll go out and help them or do something, or they're in a real need, and then they're choosing the first one they see. And that person may not know anything about law. Right? Okay. One of the things that I actually want to bring up too is when you're talking to these people, because a lot of people have noticed that I do this whenever I'm speaking to them, and hey, have a conversation with me. I do that for two reasons. Because one, I want to hear your story. I'm not going to read it. People send me a lot of, I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to skim over, see a couple things, then like, yeah, okay, I'm on to the next. Let's go and let me talk to you. Because a lot of times what happens is, in the midst of talking to you, I can actually get a grasp of what it is that you're doing or trying to do and trying to say, and where you're at in your case. And what happens is, a lot of times I'll say something, or they'll say, well, the judge, and I'll spit out before they do what the judge has said. And they go, how do you do that? Because I've been doing this since 2008. I haven't helped just one person. I've literally helped thousands of people. This is something I do. I go to sleep. I wake up. This is it. I don't pretend to do this. This is not a hobby. This is not something. This is actually my livelihood. And I understand how this works. I understand this at a level that most people will never grasp. And I take pride in that, because that's what makes me the glitch. Because the biggest part of this is what I constantly say this. This is not for someone that has fear. I am what you become when you no longer fear the consequences. And the biggest part of this is understanding that when I say the absence of fear is not the absence of everything else and just reckless abandonment. No, I'm still calculating. I'm still strategic, but I'm also not emotionally attached. Because even out of all the police officers that I've sued, only 2 did not shake my hand because they made it emotional. John Melvin, during my RICO case, did not shake my hand. He made it emotional. Made it personal. I don't care. Because after I left out the courtroom, the first person I went and spoke to was a young lady who was on the prosecuting team. When she was giving her opening statement, I was so attached that my brother had to tap me and be like, fool, she's talking about you. And I was like, oh shit, like, she's great at what she does. But when they lost the case, she ran to the hallway because, you know, her boss yelled at her for losing, which you can't blame her. You know, I've beaten a hell of a lot better players now. Anyway, but I went out into the hallway and I shook her hand, gave her a hug, and I told her, I said, whatever the hell he tells you, that's bullshit. I said, because you had me convinced I was going to prison. I was facing 2,000 years. Just let that sink in. And I still went to a jury. And this young lady was probably one of the best people I've ever gone up against. But because she did not beat me, her boss went at her. But the whole point of that is understanding While it wasn't personal for me, she did her job at a high level. And I respected that. And even in this, you know what? I started this episode the way most people start their journey, with the legal system. On the outside of the grass, I'm staring in. You heard the jargon, felt the weight of the robes, the badges, the procedures, and you assume that meant power. You assume that meant the game was fair, or at least fixed in a way you couldn't touch it. What you've heard today is the wiring behind the walls. You've seen that the system is older than you, older than your cases, older than your fear. It is designed to produce exactly what you see every day: dependency, obedience, and a steady stream of human beings who accept their punishment as destiny instead of design. You see how dense language and cryptic procedures are used as weapons. How choice is packaged and sold to you as freedom, when really it's nothing but a menu of controlled options. You've seen the truth behind controlled opposition, the loud activists who never touch the actual levers of power, the online teachers who preach strategy they could never execute in the real courtroom, the heroes who are adored precisely because they never threaten the architecture. They're not your liberators. They are integral pieces of the machine. I've shown you time and time again, you have the ability to fight back. I've shown you time and time again, with cases that you either haven't heard of, didn't understand properly, or even understand how to execute them, can defend you. And in the middle of all that, there's you. You've been taught to live in denial. I don't know. I just trusted my lawyer. I thought the judge would be fair. I hoped for the best. And you then use words like, the judge didn't listen. Oh, this is corrupted. This wasn't fair at all. Well, they're just going to do it anyway. All those are accepted parts of the program. Some of those fall into denial, which is the most predictable of human responses, because most people reject the idea of being held accountable for their decisions or their silence. The system banks on that, and it knows you will cling to hope long after strategy has left the building, which is why when I'm speaking to you, I do what is called expectation management, because I don't want you looking for something that's never going to be there. I don't want you living with hope. Obama ran on that in 2008, and we still suffering from it. Because hope is the quintessential source of human delusion. It's also your greatest strength if you chain it to knowledge and execution. Unchecked hope keeps you seated when you should be standing. Weaponized hope keeps you signing, pleading, and surrendering. I'll say that one more time. Unchecked hope keeps you seated when you should be standing. Weaponized hope keeps you signing, pleading, and surrendering. Because when you don't understand, you become a pawn in the system. And the difference between a pawn and a glitch is simple. The pawn believes, the glitch understands. Say that one more time. Because you become a pawn in the system. And the difference between a pawn and a glitch is simple. The pawn believes, the glitch understands. A pawn hopes the judge likes them. A glitch reads the rules, studies the patterns, and forces the judge onto the record. A pawn hopes the judge likes them. The glitch reads the rules, studies the patterns, and forces the judge onto the record. Notice I didn't say anything that dealt with being nice, friendly, agreeable. I used their rules and forced them to do what they're supposed to do. A pawn trusts their lawyer blindly. A glitch documents every failure, asserts client autonomy, and is ready to fire counsel and move tactically. I weaponize their duties. The box. I weaponize their duties. A pawn sees one win and crowns themselves as chosen. A glitch understands they've simply discovered one exploit in an endless field of flaws. Because the one fatal thing you could do is to get a win and think that's it. Hence why I brought up a case that was won this year and I showed you how to weaponize it. A Supreme Court decision from this year, March of this year. And I showed you how to weaponize it because continued learning is the only way you stay sharp and also stay ahead of the machines. Because that's what this is. I'm not the villain when I tell you your favorite activist might be a cog. I'm not the villain when I tell you your favorite legal influencer might be selling you recycled talking points with no execution behind them. I'm a narrator telling you the truth you refuse to believe, that the system remains rigged, in part because the people you idolize are still playing on the board instead of rewriting the game. I am what you become when you no longer feel the consequences. This is what I keep saying to you, because fear does not change the game. It makes you part of it. When you stop fearing what a judge might think and start focusing on what the law actually says, you become a glitch. When you stop fearing what might happen if you challenge and start fearing what will happen if you stay silent, you're a glitch. When you stop begging the system to like you and start forcing it to reveal itself on the record and do their job, that's the glitch. The legal matrix isn't going away. The architect is not stepping down. The code is not going to suddenly favor you because you meant well, or even because you're innocent, or even because you're intelligent. Because it has nothing to do with any of that. You don't need any of that. You need clarity. You need discipline. You need the willingness to detach from your emotions long enough to move with strategic precision. You'll be called cold, arrogant. You'll be called dangerous. Who cares? Which is why I spoke about you have to be next to being a sociopath to do this properly. Because you've got to be single-mindedly focused on the win. You've got to be stick-to-it enough with discipline to stick to your strategy and understand if there's need for a change, you're willing to execute it. And that's the moment you stop trying to be loved by the system. And it is the moment you become a threat to the system. You become the glitch. As I leave you, I want you to remember one thing. You don't have to be the architect to control your outcome. You just have to stop being the pawn and become the glitch that keeps crashing the code. Study the rules, document everything, demand records properly, challenge procedures properly, force the system onto the record every time it touches your life properly. Don't work with blind rage. Don't go out with empty hope. But out of a claim, calculated decision is no longer to feed the machine that was designed to go against you. You've seen the architect. Now decide who you're going to be in it. Because today, you stop fearing the consequences. It's the day the system has to start fearing you.